Well, hi, everybody. This is DearMamaSal, and my apologies to those of you who uh, suddenly found out that the live stream was on a different link. I welcome all of you, and for those of you who are not regular viewers, let me just quickly let you know what's going to happen. Let me first of all just warn everybody that I had to put this up on a different link, so I just want to make sure people have seen this. Okay, just bear with me 1 second, please. Right. So, hi there, Jody. Today's broadcast, we're going to do a very soulful broadcast today. And for those of you who are new, just let me tell you something. We welcome everybody, whether you come into the chat and chat with us or just watch from afar. You are more than welcome. We're amazed how many people actually just watch from afar, and we're just great with that. In the meantime, let me just tell you that it is a beautiful day here in southern British Columbia, which is where I am at. It is almost summer-like. It's not quite warm enough to be summer-like, but it's definitely spring, and it's beautiful. And so I thought I would do all our quotes today around beauty, and preferably, hi, Isabel, the beauty, hi, Beth, the beauty within ourselves is really what I want us to concentrate on. So for those of you who are regulars, you know I've got the dinner cooking. And for those of you who want to know what it is today, very pre-prepping minded, I am doing 2 pork tenderloins in a mushroom sauce. And then with it, I have got, now listen to this. Beth, you're going to love this. This is all ready for pre-prepping for the week. I've got spaghetti squash. I've got mushrooms, red and yellow pepper, red, yellow pepper, mushroom, and those are being baked. I have carrots. I have cauliflower. So whatever we don't eat today will go into the pre-prepping. I could hear Beth going, oh, you're getting stealth. Actually, stealth is Jody's word. And so that way I have found I cook my vegetables on Sundays when I'm doing the main meal, and I cook enough to last me through the week. And all I have to do is to bring out the containers with food in it. We love that. All right, so I will obviously not eat pork all week. I have beef from last week and so forth, right? So every week I just change up the combinations. Right, here we go. The first quote. First of all, I hope everybody's well. I think it was the Brit's birthday. For those of you who know the Brit, I think it was his birthday this week, just so that we know. I think it was on Monday when I was away, and I didn't put up a notice, and not surprising, really, when you realize what I was up to on Monday. So, love yourself for who you are. And trust me, if you are happy from within, you are the most beautiful person, and your smile is your best asset. How many of you feel that way? I know that a lot of you comment on my smile, but how many of you judge my inner self by my smile? And, you know, I want you to think about that, because whether we face the world every day or not, we face ourselves every day. And if we cannot be kind enough to ourselves to smile at ourselves every morning, I think that's really sad. And so I really encourage you, all right, get up in the morning, you know, whether it's your first cup or second cup, I don't mind, but really make a point of smiling. Uses lots of good muscles, and it's good for the soul. The best and the most beautiful things in the world cannot be seen or even touched. They must be felt with the heart. And that, of course, is a quote from Helen Keller, who couldn't see. She was blind. So part of her communication was to feel deeply. And I think it's incredible how she did that. Beauty is when you can appreciate yourself. When you love yourself, that's when you're most beautiful. And I don't know about you guys, but there are days that I love myself more than others. How about you? It's like some days I really do love myself. And some days, I did, just to give you an example. I had a really, really, really important form that had to be filled in by March the 31st. And I got that form probably mid-February. How many of you know that I thought that was a bit early in mid-February, so I do it sort of, I thought I'd do it in early March. And then I thought, well, it's not really due until the end of March, so um, I'll do it at the middle of March. And then, guess what today is? The 31st of March, people. And I woke up this morning and I'm going, yeah, I guess today is the day I need to fill in that form. Now, I know some of you are rolling your eyes and going, Sal, why didn't you do it a month ago? Well, because I only had to do it today. And I got it done. Mind you, it was not without problem. Do any of you relate to this? It actually called for a certain bit of very vital information. And I put that vital information in and it didn't like it. It was a government form and it didn't like that piece of information. And I'm going, there's only one person in the world that knows that information about me, and that would be Yvonne. So I quickly texted Yvonne and I said, I just filled in the form and I gave it this information. It didn't like it. And she came back and said, that's because it's wrong. And I went, okay. And she gave me the right one. So the reason I am smiling is I got away with it. And I'm certain some of you understand what I'm saying. It's like, what would I have done if Yvonne had been away? Paid the price. Yeah. And funny enough, would have paid the price. That's the price you pay if you procrastinate. Beauty has so many forms, and I think the most beautiful thing is confidence and loving yourself. We were talking about this on the broadcast on Friday as well, which is, if you are happy with yourself and the decisions that you make and the life that you live, it will show. And if you are stressed out about the decisions you make, if you are stressed out by the life that you live, if you are stressed out by the people around you, it shows. And Beth is saying here, I fake it till I make it with smiling. Fake smile helps too. Hi, Nana. And so what I ask you to do is just take a moment and just be happy with your life as it is. It may not be perfect. I am sure there are things that you're working on. I am certain that you have a list of things to do as long as anybody else is. But today is just today. Do the best you can and enjoy it. The most beautiful things, they say, are not associated with money. They are memories and moments. If you don't celebrate those, they can pass you by. Did any of you have a memory or a moment that you know that you will remember? Did you have it this week? Did you have it this month? I am going to be putting up a little bit of video as soon as I focus enough to do the editing, about the hotel that I stayed in when I was down in Washington. And just the view from it, you will all see, just was so memorable. And just everything about it was memorable, to be honest. It had the most comfortable bed I've ever slept in a hotel. I just went, wow, I've got to find out what mattress this is because I want one of these. So how many of you agree that the most important things in life are not related to money, but they are related to things and memories? Not things, memories and moments. Mary J. Bilge said, I know who I am, and I'm not perfect. I am not the most beautiful woman in the world, but I am one of them. I like that. I may not be the most beautiful person in the world, but I am one of them. And so that's a really good thing to say to yourself, when you look in the mirror in the morning, which is, hi, I may not be the most beautiful person in the world, but I am one of them. And there are people in my life that think that. And I am one of them. By the way, if any of you happen to be listening this on the replay in a car, you might want to rethink that. The reason is on Sundays, I purposely pitch my tone at a very different tone. And it could lull you to sleep. And I would hate for that to happen while you're driving. Yes, quite right, Nana. Everybody is beautiful in their own way. That the sea is one of the most beautiful and magnificent sights of nature, we all admit. How many of you get a sense of incredible peace when you see the sea? When you take that moment, if you're lucky enough to live near it, to actually go look at it. And it doesn't matter how many people are milling around you. There is that moment where you just look out across the sea into the horizon, and it is incredibly peaceful. Albert Einstein said, "The most beautiful thing we can experience is the mysterious. It is the source of all true art and science." You saw the sea in Toronto, Nana? Or the water? But you're right. The water generally has that calming effect. Oh, you went to the sea. Where did you go to the sea from Toronto? That seems like a long way away from the sea to me. It's near the lakes, but how long a drive is it? I don't know why. I always thought that was a lot farther away from the ocean. Yeah, the ocean heals everything. I quite agree, Isabel. There's something about that, isn't it? There's just a beautiful. But even, I'm sure Jody will check it out. She's very good at doing that. Ariana Grande said, "Love is really scary thing, and you never know what's going to happen. It's one of the most beautiful things in life, but it's one of the most terrifying. It's worth the fear because you have more knowledge, experience. You learn from people. You have memories." And for those of you who are listening to this who have ever been in love, and for those of you who still are, you will agree it is the most beautiful feeling in the world. I don't think there is another feeling that you can compare with it. To love and be loved. Now, for some of you, to love is terrifying and incredibly stressful. I know that. But it's not true love. When you're really in love. You've never been camping, Beth. Wow. Nana was saying that she went camping by the sea. Beth, yeah, I can imagine that would be an issue for you because the idea of it is to relax. I want to tell you something, Beth. You can go camping, just with a hairdryer. And your flat iron, if you're clever, all right. Most campsites have the ability to plug in these days. So, is there anybody else that's on the chat that's never been Yeah, actually, Beth's saying I'd be cleaning up the campsite. Beth, you're probably not surprised to hear that when I go camping, I quite often end up doing the work of a camp host, because I can't bear to see people overworked. And it's amazing how many times I've been in a campground and seen the camp manager or whatever absolutely overwhelmed. And I literally just walked up and said, "Okay, what do you want to train me to do quickly?" And, it's funny because, you know me well enough to know I'm pretty adaptable, whether it's, ushering people into the right places or doing whatever, I can do that sort of stuff. And there was one campsite where I literally took over their front desk for 4 hours and told the manager to go and get a break because she'd been going nonstop for 3 days. And I said, just, take the money box if you want to, if you don't trust me. But other than that, just know I'll cope. All right. So Isabel's saying, I went but can't anymore because she gets scared of spiders. Yeah, that is sad. I mean, I think anybody that's scared of creepy crawlies, don't go to Africa, Isabel. Whatever you do not go to Africa if you're scared of creepy crawlies, because the little ant that's here is this big in Africa. And the little beetle that's here is this big and it flies right by you. It's just like, it's just, they just make much bigger insects over there. And I really thought that the first time I saw a couple of them that wanted to actually get a saddle and throw it over their back and go for the ride, like they do in Avatar or something. What I never understood was why some women use plastic surgery to make themselves more attractive to men. The most beautiful woman is someone who's happy and always smiling. Have any of you heard of Maxwell Maltz? Maltz. Maxwell Maltz. He was quite a famous plastic surgeon. And the interesting thing is that what he wrote about was how many women came to him because they wanted to look better for their husbands and ended up, after spending all this money, just as sad as they were when they started. Right. Beth saying she had a tummy tuck because she wanted it for me, for herself and not for anybody else. Yes. And we have another viewer that did that as well. So I think in this day and age, it's really important that you do what you do for you, not to please somebody else or to make anybody love you more. And because if it takes doing that sort of stuff to your body for somebody to love you more, they don't love you to start with. So, that makes sense, Nana. So you would drive for a couple of days to get to the sea and then camp. There we go. I got it now. Now it makes sense to me. I'm going, I've got a feeling Toronto's a little bit far from the sea. All right. So you went on a vacation there. Sorry. I'm sorry to be so dumb, Nana. I got it now. That's awesome. Knowing yourself and learning to love yourself as you are is the beginning of beauty. I think it's the most important thing to show off. What's the most beautiful thing about you, and to hide what is less beautiful. What do you think? Let's hear from some of you. What do you think is the most beautiful thing about you? If somebody was introducing you to somebody else and said, "This is so and so, hi Linda, this is so and so, and the most beautiful thing about them that you don't yet know is," what will you think people would say about you? You might want to ask some of your friends. Nana's saying she has no ideas. Beth is saying, my eyes are the most beautiful because I'm engaging with them eye to eye. Linda has no problem saying it's my honesty. People find my honesty beautiful. Yeah, I do too. And Isabel, if people introduced you, what do you think they'd say is your most beautiful quality? Jody's being very quiet. So I guess what I would... Oh, Jody's saying, perhaps it's the way I make my friends laugh. Perhaps. Okay, Banana. Perhaps, I'm not sure about that. I would say that is definitely one of your qualities, is to look on the bright side of things. Yes, Beth saying her boss would say it was her enthusiasm, that it's infectious. There are those cliches, Penelope Cruz said, those things that you hear about having a baby and motherhood, all of them are true. And all of them are the most beautiful things you will ever experience. And for those of us who have never got to experience motherhood, I think watching a mother for me is the most magical experience. I love to watch Judy, for example, and her infinite patience. And or to watch Benji with the children, and genuinely in the moment. Isabel's having problems. You might want to refresh. Isabel, is there any way that you can refresh it, honey? Maybe that will help you. And close any screens that you might have open that will help as well. And somebody said here, I know everybody says that their bride was the most beautiful in the world. They're wrong. I win. How many of you would love your husband to say that? I know everybody says that their bride is the most beautiful in the world, but they're wrong. I win. I think that's cute. I certainly would love somebody to be able to say that about me. Yeah, I thought it was beautiful as well. You can be the most beautiful person on earth. And if you don't have a fitness or diet routine, you won't be beautiful. That's from Martha Stewart. I'm not sure I agree. I have to say that. And the reason I say that is I have seen some incredibly unfit people fall madly in love. And they were obviously stunningly beautiful to the person that they married. I can remember sitting there one day and going, yeah, I don't agree either, Linda. And I remember sitting there one day watching somebody who was close to 300 pounds, and she definitely, wasn't on any fitness routine or anything. And she married this gorgeous guy who actually apparently didn't see the weight. He saw the person. And, I liked him a lot better for that too. Do any of you agree with me that his judgment was not about how she looked on the outside? It was what she was as a person that he loved. And, I had them over to dinner a number of times in my life. And I always said, because you know me, I always talk about the elephant in the room. And I always said, it was, and I told them, yeah, it's incredible. When I first saw you two in love, I just thought how magical that none of the stereotypes are playing in here at all. You just love each other, and it's beautiful. And I'm pretty sure that the person who was, morbidly obese, that she said to me, and I could relate to that. She said it took her the longest time to realize that he actually did love her and did see past her weight issue. Yeah. Jody's saying this is a very unfit person married to a pretty amazing guy 19 years ago in May. So there, Martha. Do I see a raised finger, Jody? Yeah, I must admit I read it because it was here, but I definitely didn't agree with it as I was reading it. Having good health, being able to breathe and be happy, that's one of the most beautiful gifts. On top of that, I have the gift to play music and to make people happy through that. I'm telling you from my heart, I'm so in love with life. And we all have gifts. Do you know yours? It doesn't really matter what your gift is. I think that some of us have some gifts and some of us have totally different ones. I think the fact that we all have gifts is important to acknowledge. And I cannot tell you how many times I sat there with highly intelligent, highly educated people who made people without education feel small. I'm certain you've seen that happen as well. And I want to tell you that I could, and you probably are not surprised to hear this. I can remember once being in a social setting and some arrogant little so-and-so did something to make this other person feel very uneducated. And being who I am, and I'm always there for the underdog if I can, I said to him, I just saw you do an incredible thing, which was to embarrass somebody for their lack of education. And I wonder if that made you feel better. I wonder if it made you feel elite. But I happen to know that this person is an expert at, and I can't remember what it was. Maybe they were a really good baker or they were a really good, something. I can't remember what it was, but I knew them well enough to know what it was that their talent was. And I said to Mr. Arrogant, how good are you at that? And he said, never go in the kitchen. I said, yeah, exactly. So here is the thing. You are saying that your education is more talented than her ability to create cakes and bread and everything else. Do you think that is fair? That you were given the education, you didn't work for it, you were given it. And probably didn't have to pay for it either. Everybody has their talent. It's really important that we see it. Exactly. Beth is saying everyone gets different gifts because it takes all kinds of gifts for the world to be balanced. Think about that. We would not have learned what we've learned from Beth if she didn't have those gifts of pre-prepping and being such an energizer bunny that she can't afford to spend a lot of time making food. She taught us all a lot through doing that. I'm very grateful, that's for sure. Or how many of you really appreciate, Nana's gift of caring? Because I really genuinely believe that Nana cares at a very deep level. Or Jody's compassion. I'm certain anybody that's been on the broadcast more than once or twice will know that Jody, other than being incredibly organized, has the most meaningful compassion. And so, we are all a better group of people because of her ability to do that. And then Linda, your honesty just blows us away every week. It's just like, it's so beautiful. And so you look at it all and you go, and Isabel, it's really funny, Isabel, because I think that you are a very loyal friend. Am I correct in that? And if you bother to listen to people or to watch how they interact, you learn a lot about them. Which ones are givers, which ones are takers, which ones have control issues, and which ones can adapt. It was so funny. I play an online game with some people, and it's a really relaxing, pretty fun game. And it requires that you build, this sort of city. It's like a sim thing. And what I did is I took the time to go and check out everybody's city. And, I was amazed what I learned about the different people just by going and having a look at their city. Who bothered to plant flowers in their city? Who didn't care about the buildings, just threw them aside and just really worked on, the things that were going to make them money. And it was mind-blowing to see the difference. And then you could see the ones that were really balanced. They really took their time to make, their city look pretty and to be balanced. And it's really amazing to me that one of the most successful people in the group that I'm with is the most generous. How many of you are surprised about that? This guy, I call him our own personal Mr. Amazon, because if any of us need anything, this guy's got it. It's amazing. And it's just, he plays the game because he loves to give. Do you know people like that? It gives his soul pleasure to be able to help other people. And this game is ideal for him. It really feeds his soul. Of course, I had that one sussed out in a heartbeat. And he was quite surprised I worked that out. Now then, this came from Che Guevara, for those of you who remember the communist leader of Cuba for a while there. He said, above all, always be capable of feeling deeply any injustice committed against anyone, anywhere in the world. This is the most beautiful quality in a revolutionary. Have any of you heard the new law that has come in Brunei? Or actually will come in on Wednesday, I believe. Because I think there was an incredible moment, and there is still going to be, of backlash on this. I believe that on Wednesday, the Kingdom of Brunei will put down into law, the fact that anybody that is gay and found to be a practicing gay will be stoned to death or beaten to death under Sharia law. Now, I don't know about you, but I gasped when I heard that and thought, my gosh, I cannot believe that we live in 2019 and they are putting in laws like this in the world somewhere. And what absolutely blew my mind was the first person to stand up publicly and decry it was George Clooney. How many of you are not surprised? I just went, wow. And what George Clooney has done is call for a total boycott of any building that is owned by the Kingdom of Brunei. And apparently that's a lot of very well-known hotels in New York, for example. And he has called for a total boycott of those hotels. And all the restaurants and anything else that is associated with those hotels, just literally a boycott. And It'll be very interesting. Okay, say that again, Linda. Yes, he stood up against it. Yeah, he did. He came out immediately and called for a total boycott of any any business owned by the Kingdom of Brunei or its people, probably. I'm not sure. But it just literally he stood up immediately. And so I don't know about you, but there is something horrific about the fact that in this day and age, we first of all will consider stoning somebody to death or beating them to death. To me, that is in itself so cruel. But to do it just because you happen to have a different sexual preference doesn't make any sense to me at all. Brad Pitt asked, when you see a person, do you just concentrate on their looks? It's just a first impression. Then there's someone who doesn't catch your eye immediately, but you talk to them and they become the most beautiful thing in the world. The greatest actors aren't what you would call beautiful sex symbols. How about that? Which actors do you think are or were beautiful people? Let's see what we come up with. Which ones did you feel or do you feel a soul connection to for whatever reason? Because it's true, isn't it, that certain actors really have that effect on you. Let's see what everybody comes up with. Or actresses. Which actors or actresses touched your soul? And I say that because so often, right, Jodie's saying Audrey Hepburn. What was it about her that touched your soul, Jodie? Now, she definitely had the most, devastating smile, and eyes. The combination of those two were very different. This is in Brunei, not in Saudi. Do you know where Brunei is? Everybody, I forgot to mention that. Do you know where it is? It's sort of in Indonesia area. It's part of what I would call one of the Indonesian islands. I'm not sure which one it is that it's part of, but it's like a subset. Yeah, Linda's saying that a relative of hers lives in Saudi and it's difficult enough there. She said she could scream at the discrimination. Yeah. So, it is, my brother and his wife lived in Saudi for some time. I knew I could never do it. I would be in trouble too quickly, as you probably all know, because I would not be able to keep my mouth shut. And I definitely wouldn't make it as a diplomat. Okay, how about this one? It says, you create the color first and then name it a name that fits. It depends. There are no rules. You watch a fabulous old movie and you suddenly get inspired by it to create a lipstick shade. Or you walk through a gorgeous garden and find the most beautiful flower shade for an eyeshadow. And then you name it. All right, so Jodie's saying she loved everything about her voice, her demure, sorry, her demure demeanor. Boy, that's difficult to say, Jodie. And she did so much for charity. Yes, she did an awful lot for, I think she was an ambassador for Save the Children, right? Just an incredible human being on so many levels. And a truly, I believe, a beautiful person. Anybody else can think of somebody that they think is, beautiful person inside and out? It didn't have to be beautiful to look at necessarily, just a beautiful person. And how many of you have ever had the opportunity in your life to get totally dressed up, like in black tie type outfits? How many of you feel that you looked more beautiful when you were dressed up like that, or that the spouse of your life looked more beautiful on that day? How many of you miss it in a way that we don't dress up anymore, or not as much? Yes, that's another interesting one, Jody. I like that. Goldie Hawn. Um, I think she and her husband, funnily enough, or not husband, she didn't ever marry him, did she? I'll think of it in a second. I can see his smile. He's part of that family. Baldwin, isn't he? He's one of the Baldwins. No? Somebody give me a brain. Yes, Linda's saying, yes, a lady she grew up with. She was beautiful. It was her nan, and she was beautiful both inside and out. Kurt Russell, you're quite right, yes. Thank you, Tyler. Good to see you, Ty. Yes, I think the two of them. And by the way, you know where they live, right? Where they choose to live. With all the money in the world, guess where they choose to live? Down the street. Now, this is interesting. There is nothing more superficial to do than paint a beautiful woman. The most beautiful portraits in art were of ugly women. If you paint Bridget Bardot, for those of you who remember her, it's a disaster. Sunsets. You have to stay away from sunsets. If you paint a sunset, you're in great danger. Isn't that cute? All right, you can only fail. I am led to believe that Julia Roberts is really quite beautiful inside and out. No, not just the laugh, not just that unbelievable smile, but that her sense of humor and her sense of timing and her sense of the ridiculous are just so beautiful. Now, I don't know about you, but she doesn't, you don't see her play comedy. And yet she apparently is very funny. I love going to the beach in the tropics and doing whatever I do, surfing, swimming, or being, and the glow when the tan that deepens. Oh, yes, I know that feeling. I walk around with red and gold in my skin, and I feel like the most beautiful thing in the planet. If ever you have had the privilege to walk on a beach in the tropics, I want to tell you, their beaches are just so different. The color of the water is so different. The everything is just so amazing. All right, so Beth is saying she doesn't miss dressing up at all. It's just decorations on your body. Even if you get all dressed up, it doesn't reflect who you really are. Yeah, Beth, you can probably imagine I'd get all dressed up and then I'd fall, I'd fall when I wasn't meant to or something. I can, one of my greatest memories, Beth, is actually coming out of a major, like a Supreme Court. If you can imagine, like a Supreme Court building, it was an opera house, but it was like, one of those ones with all those stairs that go down, Beth. And I was dressed to the nines. I had just been to the opera, and I literally, I dress up nicely. And I was coming down the stairs. And of course, being me, I was too busy talking and not watching. And then I fell down the stairs. And when I got to the bottom, the guy I was with, I knew it was him because I could see his shoes. Said, "You know something, Sal? You have the most incredible way of embarrassing me every time we ever go out." Needless to say, I didn't go out with him anymore. Not, "Are you okay?" Not, "Did you break anything?" Just, it was, you embarrass me every time we go out. I go, "Okay, fine." How many of you think that being born with such great beauty is in itself a curse rather than a pleasure? Yeah, Tyler says, "I admit I do like throwing on a suit and showing off every now and then." Yes, there's nothing wrong with that. It's also okay if you don't. It's just that, I found that people are inclined to walk differently and talk differently when they get all dressed up. So, but we hardly ever do it now. And I was quite surprised when I went to go and visit my brother some years ago. Went back to Africa to go and visit him. And I had forgotten they all dress up for everything. And of course, I didn't have dress up clothes, did I? And I remember him saying, "Aren't you going to put on something?" And I said, "Well, actually, I'm that. What you see is what you get. Unless you want to buy me some dress up clothes, because I didn't bring any." But I think people who are born, truly beautiful, it's sad in a way because they live their whole life on their beauty, and then 9 times out of 10, age and or whatever, takes the beauty away. And so I've met quite a few people who were not able to cope with that well. They traded on their beauty so much that when they didn't have it anymore to that degree. Now, I would also ask you, some people, and I'm sure some of my viewers, have had probably some sort of cosmetic surgery done. And I'm not against that necessarily. If that's good for your self-esteem, then it's good. But, I find it so obvious that, people have had, a facelift, because they're always smiling. And it's a funny smile, right? It looks, hang on, let me try and do it. Yeah, you see how it goes at the edges there? So you see somebody with a smile like that, you know that they've had a facelift, because that's not a natural smile. All right, a natural smile is very different, has a different view to it, or the way in which the mouth moves. And so, to me, it's like or somebody's had a lot of Botox. You're going, yeah, that's really amazing. Now, Beth, are you still using the Lubriderm? I've got to ask that because I have to tell you, I spent my life so much of my life of incredible, in incredible African sun. And quite honestly, my face should not look as almost flawless as it is. But I really know that I believe that what I did was I did nothing good with my face except wear it for so much of my life. And yet when I came to Canada and out of the sun, I started using Lubriderm, and I don't know what made me start putting it on my face, but I saw a dramatic change in the lines on my face and and everywhere. I still have some bags, but what do you expect at my age? But it's just like my whole face changed back into looking healthy. Beauty doesn't last long, right? You say that Kenny Rogers is a perfect example of what, Ty? I just want to make sure I understand you. Somebody who had a lot of stuff done? Yeah, Beth's saying she's still using it. Yeah, cosmetic surgery. Yep. Well, Beth, I'm hoping that you're getting the same results that I got, because Nicholas thinks I'm in my 50s. Isn't that beautiful? Actually, you know something, Linda? I'm quite surprised how many people think that, because of my skin. And yet, as I said, I subjected my skin to an incredible amount of sun in my 20s and 30s. And, it should look like leather right now. And some of you going, maybe it does. Yes, Kenny is nearly unrecognizable, and I thought he was so attractive before all that work. Yeah, there are a couple of other people that have, had that much work done, and you're going, wow, I wish they hadn't. I would prefer them an older version of themselves. How about this? The most beautiful girl in the room not only gets the guy, she lands the job, she gets better service at a restaurant, she rises through the social ranks before her friends. Doors open for beautiful women that may not be there for female who is twice as smart but half as beautiful. How many of you believe that to be true? How many of you believe that beautiful people get more chances in life? And is it beauty on the outside, or is it beautiful people? Think about them. Now, this I think is priceless, and maybe some of you will agree with me on this one. I feel I'm most beautiful when I have less makeup on and I'm at home with people surrounding me that support me and that I know will never judge me or try to change me. How many of you feel beautiful in that environment? That they just love you as you are. And you are so comfortable with them that you feel beautiful. Yes, Linda's making the distinction here that, confident people get noticed a little more. But you know something? They get noticed more by certain people, but I also know from experience that quiet people can stand out as well. How many of you have been in a room or a meeting, if you're business people, where there was that one person that didn't say very much, but when they did speak, the whole room just stopped because it was so meaningful? Yes, Beth is saying beautiful people on the outside are sometimes the saddest. The same Beth as I was talking about this on Friday, right? The number of comics that are really so sad, the reason they got to be so funny was because of the pain in their lives. Keanu Reeves said it's always wonderful to get to know women with the mystery and the joy and the depth. If you can make a woman laugh, you're seeing the most beautiful thing on God's earth. I don't know if any of you have ever been to New Zealand, but somebody is saying here that New Zealand is one of the most beautiful countries to drive through for the scenery and its vast scale of the place. I found that also in Switzerland. To me, Switzerland was such a pretty country and so incredibly clean. It stood out to me because it was so pretty and clean. And somebody said, the most beautiful thing in Cambodia isn't the country, it's the Cambodian people. As I always say, the most magical thing about DearMamaSal isn't DearMamaSal. It's DearMamaSal and the people, right? It's not, I'm just the front guy, if you like. And so I try not to forget that it is all of you that come and join in that make this such a beautiful experience for people. If you can visualize the whole of spring and sea paradise with an eye of belief, you may understand the utter majesty of everlasting beauty. If you respond to that beauty with the beauty of belief and worship, you will be a most beautiful creature. Oh, I managed to get a hair into my eye, just sticking in my. Have you ever done that? It's very, very painful. All right, then somebody said, I've always thought that the back is one of the most beautiful parts of a woman. I've created 4 versions of the front to back necklace, which actually gives you 2 necklaces in one. I love the way they swing and catch in the light as the woman is walking away. You almost want to pull on it and stop her. Obviously, this is a fashion designer. Yeah. And then Nicole Kidman. Ah, happy Mother's Day. And Linda's saying her son said today, you're not just a pretty person, Mum, but all mummies are lovely. It's Mother's Day. Well done. I think that's beautiful. Happy Mother's Day to you, Linda. We don't have Mother's Day until May, I think, over here. Nicole Kidman said, I always wanted to get married with just candles. I think candlelight is the most beautiful light there is. There's something very spiritual about it. How many of you still light candles? And by the way, if ever you have a power outage, you will be amazed at the heat you can create with just tea light candles. Have any of you found that, which is, if you have a power outage and it's in the winter, make sure that you always have a lot of, candles and tea light candles, not just for light, but for heat. Candles can create an incredible amount of heat. How many of you have tried, putting a candle underneath an upturned flower pot? The heat that gets thrown out there is incredible. If you put a tea light candle, if you cut a Coke tin or something, and put a tea light candle in it, that will act as an incredible heater if you happen to be camping and it's cold. I love these hacks. Art is the most beautiful deception of all. And although people try to incorporate the everyday events of life in it, we must hope that it will remain a deception, lest it become a utilitarian thing, as sad as a factory. I think that's so true, right? Art is a deception. The comment that was made earlier, there aren't too many paintings of really ugly-looking people, right? There were a few kings where they struggled a bit, I think. But when you think about that, they don't paint ugly people. Or if they do, they paint them to be much prettier than the reality. Now, some of you may totally get this one. It says that changing your mind is probably one of the most beautiful things people can do. I've changed my mind on a lot of things over the years. How about you? I love nothing better than to be sitting with a friend and, debating back and forth on something, and then stopping and going, you know something? When you walked in here, I didn't believe that. But now that you've explained it the way that you have, I have a different opinion. Thank you. Right? Because to me, this is, to me, I love it when we have discussed things enough that it changes my mind. Beth saying, this will be the first Mother's Day that I will celebrate for myself. I boycotted it all my life. Just don't want to celebrate a bad childhood. This year is different. I have love back in my heart. Beth, that is so beautiful. I cannot think of a greater gift you can give to the world than to have love back in your heart. One of the most beautiful things in the world that I've ever seen or heard is people laughing, even when there seems to be so little reason for them to laugh. I totally agree with that. Some of you know that when I was a speaker, I very rarely spoke a lot in the middle of summer. People were away a lot and people didn't book speakers in the middle of summer. And so what I always did was I tried to make sure that in the summer, I donated my time to what I hoped would be, a worthy cause, worthy in as much as that it would help make a difference. And there were two areas that I really focused on. One was going and talking to women prisoners. I used to go to the women's prison and speak to them and make them laugh. I'd also teach them life skills, but I would make them laugh. I would go in as a comedian with knowledge rather than, a knowledge person that happened to be funny occasionally. And, it was amazing to watch the difference in them. Their whole demeanor changed. The other place I went, and some of you know this from listening to me, was I used to go to the cancer clinic, and specifically to people with brain tumors. Or I can remember going out of my way to sort of talk to people with lupus or, other sort of autoimmune diseases that they were stuck with, quite honestly. And what I found was being able to make them laugh gave me the greatest joy. Yes, Beth is saying I can agree to that. I dropped a whole box of kitty litter on myself yesterday and I laughed. Today I dropped a jar of pickles on myself, but at least not on my toe. I laughed. Beth, you will know that you have found happiness when you can do something like that and laugh at yourself. That means you are a happy person. At last. Well done. You don't think about, I've just dropped pickles all over me. I smell terrible. It's just like, hello, what did I do now? And how many of you agree with this? Maria Doyle Kennedy said, I was inspired by my son on the song, The Most Beautiful People Are Broken. Life is an extra challenge for them. but he does it all with such grace and courage. How many of you have found people, who are challenged with all sorts of physical or mental challenges, and they are such beautiful people because they do it in such a beautiful way? Now, some of you go back far enough to understand this quote. Larry Hagman of the original Dynasty series said that Barbara Eden is the most beautiful girl in the world. How about that? That was I Love Jeannie, right? The two of them starred together in I Love Jeannie. What a lovely thing to be able to say of your co-star. Or how about living in that childish wonder is a most beautiful feeling. I can so well remember it. There was always something more behind and beyond everything. To me, golden spectacles were very, very big. How many of you, when you play, when you allow yourself to play every now and then, you can feel that there is beauty in that moment? I was talking to Marnie's mum when they came to visit me the other day, and she started to talk to me about being a crafter in the middle of a conversation. And the moment she started to talk about crafting, her whole demeanor changed, and her smile changed, and her eyes changed. And you just knew that her soul was a crafter. You know what I mean? It just gave her such joy. And I just was so amazed at how beautiful, she's a beautiful woman anyway, but how beautiful she looked in that moment. I think the most beautiful thing is that we're not parting because there were problems. We're parting because we're celebrating each other's growth. Yes, how many of you can see that maybe you were in a relationship and it broke up, and it wasn't necessarily a bad thing. It was actually that it had run its course. Beth is saying, my coworker put a note on my back, and when customers say something smells like pickles, I just turned around and let them read the note on my back that said, yep, I smell like pickles. Spread the laugh. Yes, yes. If you've got a moment to make people laugh, do it. Well done, Beth. And to if you understand the expression, milk it for all it's worth. If you can trade on that laughter all day, do it, right? Because you're going to smell like pickles all day until you get a change of clothes. That's for sure, and a good shower. Well done. I'm delighted that the teamwork in that is wonderful. I totally agree with this. This came from Eva Gabor, the actress, and she said, if a man is truly in love, the most beautiful woman in the world could not take him away. How many of you agree with that? That if you are truly in love, nobody could take you away from the person you love. I remember talking to somebody once, a man who was telling me that they actually were busy having all sorts of relationships on the internet. And I said, how do you feel about betraying your wife like that? And he said, no, it's not real. I go, yes, it is. Yes, it is. You see, I agree with that. I don't think that you can love somebody and then be living vicariously through an internet dating site or something. So maybe I am weird like that. Flea markets are fun because they're the ultimate treasure hunt. Be open to the fact that you will never know what you're going to find. The most beautiful, quirky, funny, scary pieces may not have intrinsic value. Hi, Nolene. Good to see you. Beth saying, I have some great news. I'm going to lunch with a friend that I can be myself with. She will be the first friend that I go out with since I was a teenager. Wow, Beth. Huge steps forward. Well done, honey. Jodie's actually saying that she's weird like that too. Yeah. In terms of that people can't see that the betrayal via the internet is still betrayal. But I wonder whether the next generation will feel that way. You are putting yourself out there all over the place, Beth. It's wonderful. How many of you like to go to flea markets? Yeah, Linda loves them, right? She makes her living out of them. Now then, Andy Warhol, the artist, said, "I think having land and not ruining it is the most beautiful art that anyone could ever want to own." How about that? How many of you would love to just be able to buy a property and fill it full of wildflowers and just know that you did that? It was just beautiful because you let it be beautiful. And I've always said, wildflowers are just weeds that look pretty. you know, that's a DearMamaSal quote. But if you think about it, most wildflowers are just pretty looking weeds. And it's so funny when I but they are, Jody, if you think about it. Right? Somebody decided that weed looked pretty, so it's a wildflower. It's not a weed anymore. It's a wildflower now. And how about to be free and to live a free life? That is the most beautiful thing there is. I agree, Beth. Some weeds are really pretty. I think the poppy, which is a weed, the poppy is the most beautiful flower. If you think about it, daisies. How many of you love daisies? Yeah, Linda's saying, yeah, I get that. We have an area we plant just plants for butterflies and bees. That's awesome. What do you put in there, Linda? Yeah, Nolene's saying come to Western Australia and you won't call them weeds. So how many of you do what Linda's saying, that you actually intentionally put in flowers that will attract butterflies and bees? I do. I also have one part of my garden, Linda, that I plant as an English country garden, just to remind me of the days when, the English country gardens are actually not a lot of work, because the flowers all just keep coming up. And any minute now, Linda, I'm going to have one section of my garden is going to be covered in bluebells and tulips. And I love it when, the tulips come through the bluebells. It just always looks so pretty to me. And it reminds me of England. I don't know why, but it does. Yeah, Linda's saying she just bought a box of special flowers to attract butterflies and and bees. I think it's wonderful. And you remember we were talking about that. Who was that told us about that? That Morgan Freeman has actually started becoming a bee farmer because he got so upset about the number of bees that were, the population of bees was diminishing so drastically that he started to become a bee farmer to increase the number of bees in the world. Emma told us. Thank you, Jody. You have a wonderful memory. Your two brain cells, I want to tell you, they work in very good unison. All right, so this is somebody saying, in the middle of my sophomore year, I was sent to boarding school at the Cranbrook School for Boys in Bloomfield Hills, Michigan, where I fell in love with Marilyn Monroe. I knew that she was the most beautiful woman in the world, and yet she was in pain and in need. She was unhappy. I believed I could have helped her. Yeah, some of the most beautiful people are not the happiest. Pierce Brosnan said, love means that everything is right with the world. Love and only love. Love means you are content with your own heart and in the presence of the person that you love, who fills your day and makes you stronger and wiser, and gives you the confidence to go out in the world. Love is the most beautiful, joyous feeling. Beautiful. And I have to agree. Although I must admit, there were many times when I was in love that I thought I was going insane. I don't know if any of you relate to that. There was an insanity to it, too. Jane Mansfield, well known for her beauty and her boobs. I don't really think I'm the most beautiful woman in the world at all. If I can create some illusion to that effect, and it seems that I have, then that's what spells success to me. She has a very famous daughter. Who is Jane Mansfield's daughter? Haggerty? SVU. Law and Order SVU. Haggerty. What's her name? Melmer something. Begins with an M. I think she's Jane Mansfield's daughter. Am I correct on that? How do you make it love for yourself? Well, you know something? I think loving yourself is a very wonderful, selfish act. I actually have some days, Linda, I don't know if this is relevant to what you're asking, but I actually have some days where I go, today I'm just going to make myself happy. Yeah, right? It's not about being smart or being caring. Yes. Is she Jane Mansfield's daughter? Mariska. I knew it was a funny name, began with M. I think she's Jane. I think He married Jane Mansfield. Yes. Okay, I did get it right. My one brain cell is working today. Good. So, Linda, I really want to tell you that the greatest vacation is the day that you give yourself. Have any of you done that where you go, I'm not going to, I'm going to warn the family. And quite honestly, sometimes you get to do it on Mother's Day. But actually to have a day where you eat what you want to eat, not what anybody else wants to, where you actually get to watch the programs you want to watch and not what anybody else wants to, where you want to get up at the time you'd actually like to get up, not the time everybody else needs you to. I think there's a lot to be said for that. I think the greatest joy I've had in being retired is nobody tells me what time I have to get up anymore. I love it. And I don't. Somebody came knocking on my door at 10 o'clock on a Sunday morning this morning, and I'm going, yeah, really. And this is not daytime to me. I know you've up and been up for a long time, but this is not daytime yet. This is still nighttime in my world. How about this? You could make the most beautiful film, and that weekend it's raining too hard on the East Coast and nobody goes out. Artists should have a chance to do it again. That is the challenge. Women artists don't get a second chance. People of color artists don't get a second chance. If you're put in the director's chair, that's a wrap. And Claude Debussy, the composer, said, art, didn't he write The Seasons? I hope I'm right on that. I think he wrote a collection called The Seasons. But he wrote some truly beautiful music, Debussy. But he says art is the most beautiful of all lies. Yes, we very rarely see a painting of an ugly person, is the point I was making. And how about this one? If there is honesty in your face, the battle is won. If it doesn't have to be the most beautiful face in the world. The audience can relate to you. They feel love, not lust for you. How many of you know that that is a magical feeling where you can feel somebody isn't in lust with you, but they actually love you for who you are? They love you in the morning when you get up and before you look gorgeous. They love you for who you are. Or they love you regardless of whether you've got makeup on or not, whether you're wearing your sweats or not, whether you're all dressed up to go out or not. They just love you. And some of you, I know in this room, have that in your lives. Be forever grateful. When you wake up in the morning, make sure you give thanks for that person that loves you to that degree. Now, I'm about to go and deal with life. I'm going to close on a quote about Asia, because I have to tell you I agree with it. Somebody said, I am not a religious person myself, but I did look for nature. I spent my first sabbatical in New York City looking for something different for a second one. Europe and the US didn't really feel enticing to me because I knew them too well. So Asia it was. The most beautiful landscapes I had seen in Asia were in Sri Lanka and Bali. Now, I must admit that I've had the honor and privilege to go to Bali. But I would say in my world, the most beautiful beach I ever sat on was in Mauritius. The most beautiful sunset I ever saw was in Africa. When I look at it now, so many different things and so many beautiful things I have had the opportunity to see in my life. And I am so incredibly grateful for that. And people ask me, Sal, where are you going to travel to next? And I said, you need to know that I have been so fortunate. I have traveled most of the world. And there are very few places that I still would like to go to. I do have a small bucket list that I'm busy working on. But, I am so fortunate that I have seen the places that I have. But I don't know about you. But how many of you believe that the most beautiful place in the world is home? However nice it is to go and see different places, eat different foods, you know, experience different people. There is something about walking through your own front door and realizing you are home. Whatever home looks like to you doesn't matter. Whether you own it or rent it doesn't matter. It is home. And so, as I leave you today, I just want you to know that you are a beautiful person if you care to see it. You are surrounded by beautiful people if you are prepared to let go of your judgments of them. And you live in a beautiful world where some funny people are doing some funny things. But I do believe that we can make the difference if we stay in a place of love. I do believe that if we speak out against cruelty and misery, that we can make a difference. And I seriously do believe that we are beautiful if we choose to be. Have a wonderful week, everybody. Thank you for spending some time with me. I hope that it feels good. If it does, please leave a comment below. And please let other people know that we do this on a Sunday, because I am sure there are a lot of people in the world that would love to take a moment just to regroup, ready for the week. This is DearMamaSal saying thank you so much and have a wonderful, wonderful week. Thank you for being here. Look after one another, but please, 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 as usual, remember to look after yourself. Big hugs. Bye-bye for now.